Federal government to extend the development of the nation's capital for sustainable future.
Nigeria to collaborate with India in setting up vaccine plant in Oka, Ogun State.
Senate commences 5-day interactive session on 2022-2025 medium-term expenditure framework fiscal strategy data.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine proposals for the establishment of state police in Nigeria.
All right, it's generally believed that a persistently chaotic situation requires a new approach for solution, and that perhaps informs the people's desire and call for a new approach to tackling the diverse insecurity challenges plaguing the country. And of course, they also appear in various dimensions, Kinsley.
That's right. In 2021, the House of Representatives passed for second reading a bill seeking to amend the 1999 Constitution to allow for the creation of state police and also legalize regional security outfits in order to combat sub-national security threats and consolidate also the existing police prescriptions with regard to the legal requirements.
All right, and with the passing of the bill, it is expected that the current police system will be decentralized by moving police from the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent list. In other words, the bill seeks to alter the constitution in order to provide for state police and other state government security services to enhance security and preservation of lives and property in Nigeria.
Well, to complement this fact, the 19 northern governors and traditional rulers in the region, as well as the Ekiti state government, have recently called for the amendment of the Constitution in order to give legal backing to the calls for state police. But the bill that we referred to earlier, which was sponsored by former Deputy Senate President in 2020, is yet, of course, to get the nod of the legislature. But this is, of course, according to those who are opposed to the establishment of state police, who argue that Nigeria isn't ripe, in their opinion, for multi-level policing structures. And the key apprehension is the likely abuse of state police by governors who might then turn them, it is argued, into instruments of oppression of their opponents. But Nigerians, of course, every day continue to witness incidents of insecurity in terms of banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and armed robbery, resulting in the loss of lives and property.
Now, what are the issues and major concerns regarding this bill, and what is the way out? These and more are some of the questions that Good Morning Nigeria is set out to seek answers to, as we bring you guests much later in the program to discuss the state of policing in Nigeria and what we have to do to effect a change. I am Kurian Umayo. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria for today.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague to also welcome you to the program, and we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, our complimentary segments of newspaper review and business will also come up. For now, Musbao Don Wahab has highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Musbao.
Very good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. The news. Determined to extend the development of a nation's capital for sustainable future, the federal government has approved more than 28.1 billion naira for the provision of desired infrastructure at Wasa Affordable District. Minister of the FCT, Mohammed Musa Bello, announced this at media briefing after the meeting of the Federal Executive Council in Abuja.
The initial contract for that project was awarded in 2014 at the sum of 56 billion. But as time went by and due to inflation and so many other factors, we had to vary the contract and the price to reflect current reality. We are going to have 2 waste treatment substations and then 2 electricity substations. So it's a whole comprehensive development of a district and drainage and of course a number of bridges. And if this infrastructure is done, it opens up the districts and allows all the plot allottees to be able to develop their plots, which obviously will also extend the development of the city to that part of the overall territory.
Still coming from the FEC meeting, Vaccine Nigeria Limited is to collaborate with Serum Institute of India, the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines, in the establishment of vaccine manufacturing plants in Nota, Ogun State. When operational, the joint venture company is to set up to supply 15% of the vaccines normally supplied by UNICEF to Nigeria. Minister of Health, Osage Hehanire, told journalists that the approval was granted by the Federal Executive Council at its hybrid meeting this Wednesday.
Since domestically. Now they have been sourcing for international partners who will join them and give them the technology transfer that they require. They settled with the Serum Institute of India, which will now be the technical partner to support them in setting up vaccine production plant in Nigeria. So who will buy? So government now has approved 15% of the vaccines that UNICEF normally supplies us for biovaccine to supply through contract manufacturing with the Serum Institute of India. And with that beginning, Serum Institute of India will now be comfortable enough to come and join Biovaccine Nigeria in building their manufacturing plant here in Nigeria in Ota.
Now, there is an indication that President Muhammadu Buhari is likely to present the 2023 budget proposal within the first week of October 2022. Speaker House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila stated this while inspecting ongoing renovation of key areas of the National Assembly complex. The ongoing renovation, he added, is to ensure that chambers used by the legislators match international best standards. The renovation is expected to be completed by August 2023 for use by lawmakers in the 10th Assembly. Meanwhile, plenary proceedings will hold in Committee Room 28 upon reconvening of plenary next week after the annual recess. The Speaker also inspected the office complex for National Assembly Service Commission under construction. Senate has commenced a 5-day interactive session with relevant stakeholders on the 2023-2025 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper.
The federal government aggregate expenditure is projected to be 19.76 trillion, and this is inclusive of expenditures of 64 government-owned enterprises that we have been aggregating and bringing into the national budget. In this scenario, the budget deficit is projected to be 11.3 trillion in 2023.
Our projection for 2023, therefore, we are hoping, all things being equal, we are looking towards collection 2.8 trillion. And then in 2024, our projection is 3.5 trillion. Then in 2025, we hope all things working well, we should be able to collect for government 3.752 trillion.
Away from the National Assembly, the federal government is working to consolidate its appreciable ranking on transparency by the Global Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative come first quarter of 2023. The latest of such engagements is a workshop on the roles of civil society organizations in reporting standards.
This was going on. We released our 2019-2020 report. As soon as we released the report, these companies that wanted their name protected were rushing to the relevant agencies to pay up.
It's important that the civil society are also being sensitized on the process because the process has changed.
NTA has improved over time because before now, so it gives some years gap before you get this report.
The 2022 International Broadcast Convention may have come and gone, but its memories and opportunities it has afforded Nigeria will be a game changer for the country's broadcast industry.
This particular IBC comes of significance to us in Nigeria because we are here because we recognize the fact that the country is brimming over with talented youth. The total global revenue from the industry is about 2.3 trillion. How do we ensure that Nigeria and Nigerian youth in particular are empowered and they take a fair size and take advantage of this industry, especially given the fact that we have so many talented youths.
The federal government has directed immediate closure of a bridge linking to Gasao Serikin Kogi in Bebeji local government area of Kano State to avert further flood-induced disaster. Minister of Water Resources Suleiman Adamu gave a directive during a joint assessment visit to Tiga Dam.
Two things to address. First of all, we have to address the damage that has been done, and then also address the issue of loss of income and property by people. Thank God, so far we have not received any report of lives being lost.
That's Denise on Good Morning Nigeria. The program will continue in just a moment with Kirian and Kinsley after this break. Stay with us.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. You are armed with a machete and a gun.
See, I'm angry and I can't even contain it. See.
Oh, my guy, calm down, calm down.
See, Oga, I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our place. They cannot eat their cake and have it now, never.
If you destroy their business here, and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold?
See, what you're saying is correct. But I'm still angry.
The best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity,
my people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters. for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Trying our best to contain the situation. In our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities. And we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now we go business. World oil demand for 2022 is expected to rise in terms of the number of barrels per day, year on year, based on latest OPEC's report. Let's now join Kunle Adeye for further details.
Latest report by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC for September 2022 indicates that gas to oil substitution for power generation and for industrial uses in OECD, Europe and Asia represents an important component of the demand outlook for the year. The report explained that total oil demand is projected to average 100 million barrels per day in 2022. In the OECD region, oil demand is anticipated to rise by 1.6 million barrels per day to 46.4 million barrels per day year on year. In the non-OECD region, total oil demand for the year is anticipated to rise by 1.5 million barrels per day to 53.7 million barrels per day. In 2023, expectations for healthy global economic growth combined with anticipated improvements in the containment of COVID-19 in China are expected to boost oil consumption. The demand outlook for 2023 remains at 2.7 million barrels per day. In the meantime, oil rose about 2% on Wednesday, rebounding from the previous day's lows as an international energy watchdog expects an increase in gas to oil switching due to high prices this winter. And the equities markets on Wednesday closed on a negative note. At the end of the day's trading, the NGX All Share Index depreciated to 49,575.93 points after closing flat the previous day.
That was the business package, and up next for us now is newspaper review.
All right, it's now time for newspaper review, and we have about 4 newspapers this morning. The Nigerian Pilot, Vanguard, and
Daily Trust
and Al Jazeera. All right, let's begin with the Nigerian Pilot. From top to bottom, Orosha's report, Senate backs rationalization of agencies to save the economy. That's on page 5. 600 persons displaced as armed headers attack Benue communities. Details on page 9. Now, the lead story of the Pilot newspaper, RU must go. 4 riders to that. PDP's Southwest demands immediate resignation of party national chairman Yosha Ayu, who says call for his resignation in the interest of equity, justice, and fair play. Due process must be followed. PDP has rules, conventions, says the article. Insists he has no problem with wherever any member of the party comes from. You get more on that on page 8 of the Nigerian pilot. Now, below the photo story, Musliu Smith resigns as PFC chairman. That story is also on page 8. Below that, flood kills over 300 persons this year, according to National Emergency Management Agency. It's on page 7, NEMA. Federal government okays 30.1 billion naira for infrastructure in FCT and Bielsa. It's also on page 7. Now, on page 5 of the pilot newspaper, we have Senate tackles Buhari's 6 trillion tax waiver to companies. Panel awards 289 million compensation to victims of NSAS crisis. It's on page 5. Also on page 5, NMPC Limited to sign MOU with Morocco on 700-kilometer gas pipeline project. Women fleeing banditry gave birth to 22 babies in Shiroro. That's an interesting one. It's on page 6 of the pilot.
That's right. That's one of the consequences, Kieran, of insecurity in parts of the country. Let's also take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper is next for us. Below the nameplate, you have a number of headlines. But let's just first take a look at the reminder, still in captivity. 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birini Yauri and one student of Bethel Baptist High School in Kujama. And the Kujama pupil has been there for 428 days, while the 11 schoolgirls of FGC have been in captivity for 455 days, according to the Daily Trust newspaper. Buhari to present 19.76 trillion naira 2023 budget, October. That's attributed to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gbajabiamila. Senators OK Orosaye report say over 400 MDAs risk scrapping. Nigeria French agency signed 25 million euro deal for power transmission projects. Now the lead story comes with a double decker headline, and that of course also with a kicker. Call for state police, that's the kicker. ACF, that's Arewa Consultative Forum. NEF, that's Northern Elders Forum. Afenifere PANDEF, that is the Niger Delta Forum. Back Northern Governors and Monarchs. That's call for state police. ACF, NEF, Afenifere, PANDEF, Back Northern Governors and Monarchs. 3 riders. Ekiti passes bill, Kano in 2 weeks. Jigawa to follow soon. It's a nullity without National Assembly approval, as according to Professor Awalu Yadudu. Now you have the stories there on the front page with a jump to page 4. Southwest PDP meets Atiku, demands Ayu's resignation. Kirian already read that. How Smith was forced to resign as PSC chair. Police kill kidnappers sharing ransom in forest. This happened in Kwara, so that's they were neutralized along with the loot. On the details on page 29. 23 Abuja Kaduna train passengers still in captivity 186 days after. And Kira, very quickly, let me take a look at the headline, 1 or 2 headlines from Al Jazeera. From Al Jazeera, says road tax credit scheme will accelerate infrastructure development. That's according to FIRS. And then, of course, says Ayade locks out staff over lateness. 2 stories, we'll take it from the front page of the Al Jazeera newspaper. Kirian.
Okay, also quickly go through the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, but we'll begin from stories on the above the name flag of the paper. Vanguard, above the name flag. JAMB seeks hike in registration fees to 5,000 naira. It's on page 4. Now, old Port Harcourt refinery will become functional by December this year, according to the federal government. That story is also on page 4. Nigeria not on track to meet many SDGs by 2030. That's the UN. It's on page 13. Banks customers pay 45.9 billion naira as account maintenance fees in H1 in the first quarter for 2022. All right, now below the name flag, I am awaiting military's response to attack on Oba Buhari. That's on page 10. And below that, ASU strike, students blocking Lagos Ibadan Expressway violating law. Federal government says so. It's on page 6. Now the lead story on the Vanguard. Niger Delta militants at war over pipelines contracts. This is a very interesting story. You know, Tompolo insatiable sidelined me. Other leaders, according to Alaji Dokubo. Now, PPP arrangement with Global West Vessel Specialist, not Tompolo, according to source. Revoke contract or wait for anarchy. Lori Obebo to federal government. Ignore Lori Obeba's call to revoke contract, IPDI. Our fears over crude oil theft, pipeline vandalism, labor. That's a whole lot of story on page 24 of Vanguard newspaper. And below that, of course, we have the photo story of the PDP Southwest meeting. And below that is about the crisis. PDP crisis. Ayu must go. Marking there. Nigerians won't trust us if we remove Ayu. That's Atiku speaking there. Is on page 4. So we'll have
very to deal with. Well, let me begin first by drawing attention to the report. You know, that's the rationalization of MDAs. There was a study that was commissioned by President Goodluck Jonathan. A report was then presented to say, look, take a look at the 600 plus MDAs and see which of them could be merged and then which of them could be scrapped. Now, I'm not getting into the details of which one merits to be scrapped or otherwise, but I'm saying that in recent years, there's probably no Nigerian who has had his name misspelled than Stephen Oronsai. Yes. Stephen Oronsai. Now, if you take, I want to draw attention to so you can see it on the screen. Take a look. I know that is a common mistake, but take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper, for instance. Daily Trust newspaper. Senators, okay, Oronsai. This one is saying Oronsai. Sometimes you hear people pronounce it Oronsai, Oronsonya. I don't know how you're going to pronounce it, Kirian. But the spelling here in Daily Trust, if I can see that on the screen. You see that spelling there. Now, that spelling is wrong. It's not correct. Now, but if you take a look, Kirian, if you take a look at the front page of Al Jazeera, which is the lead story for Al Jazeera, take a look at the lead story for Al Jazeera. It says, cash crunch. Senate backs that report. See that on the front page of the Al Jazeera newspaper? All right. Now, that is the correct spelling. Okay. That is the correct spelling. Oronsaye, that's the way it's normally pronounced in Benin. Stephen Oronsaye was head of service of the Federation. Before then, of course, he had been permanent secretary in the village. I just wanted to draw attention to that. Nobody has had his name misspelled.
Exactly. And let's get to the Oronsaye report. You know,
you want us to get into
exactly. You know, because it's a very technical area. You know, because it is merging that we're talking about. Well, I'm sure that the Oronsaye panel did a very, critical review of all these agencies and what they have to offer to the federal government with respect to development of different sectors of our national life. You know, but my experience, in terms of agencies, especially those ones that are inclined to science and technology and all of that, is that some of these agencies are even underutilized in terms of funding. So for you to now feel the impact, of some of those agencies is extremely difficult. Those appear that those who should be adequately funded are not properly funded. Therefore, they're incapacitated, to even, make sense, to give reasons, to say this agency was established for social reason, and we have been realizing that reason with respect to the impact it's going to make on the society. But some of them are laying fallow for so many years, and perhaps that's part of the reason why a panel was set up in the first place.
Well, no question about that. When the panel sat, it had its sittings in one of the buildings within the villa vicinity. I recall at that time, this was many years ago, part of what the criteria was, but namely, you had to look at the mandate of the particular agency, and the mandate will be derived from the piece of legislation setting up that particular agency. And sometimes you found that there were intersections in the functions of the agency. So the idea there would be, because usually when you set up an agency, you also have a structure for its governance. You have CEO here, CEO there, all kinds of heads of management and departments, and these are cost centers. So that was part of what was done. But in terms of saying that even existing agencies are sometimes not properly funded, that's the point. So, but what the rationalization would do, therefore, would be funding would not be available. There's no question about it, Kirian, that if you and I, for instance, were to say, look, let's do an independent study, you will find that there are a number of government agencies whose names people don't even remember. And yet, every month, they are on the payroll of the government.
Because they are dysfunctional, not that there's no reason to that you know, reasons.
No. They are not, if they are dysfunctional, they should go. They are non-functional.
All right. Yeah. So this Nigerian militants at war. I read so many of the stories, you know, on social media, and I just got laughing, you know, all the way, because I don't really understand what is happening there. Dokubo says, look, you give contract to Tompolo. What about us? You know, that Tompolo should not set his foot in his area and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering how that's going to be handled, because as it is now, like this was say PPP arrangement with Global West Vessel Specialist, not Tompolo. But you know, somehow
that's a company.
Yes, the company. But we keep hearing Tompolo. You know,
well,
that has been given.
I mean, let's not. We don't have the time to get into the details. Well, I think that what is required would be some fence mending, peace building, as well as, if you may, contacts. Because these are, if you may, again, these are warlords in their respective areas. Tompolo is from Delta. Asari Dokubo is from Rivers. In the past, you used to hear names like General Boyloaf, Atake Tom, and so on and so forth. But the whole idea is to say, look, continue to help for the protection of pipelines and other critical infrastructure, because our oil production has gone down drastically by 1.2 million barrels a day.
But some of them, if they don't have the apparatus, you know, to effectively, you know, check the oil bunkering and other misgivings, you know, in that sector, then why is the need asking for a contract? Right. For those who say, look, you have given it out, what about us? How do is that the way things are shared or contracts are shared?
Well, again, it's for the contract awarding agency to explain the basis, assuming that becomes necessary, Kirian. So we have to call it time out, because we are focusing on the renewed calls for the establishment of state police in our conversation segment. There is a story, a big story. I'm sure that we're going to have time sometime in the future. It's been on the social media. It's out there on YouTube. People can download it. They have shared it extensively. It's a statement issued by the Coalition of United Political Parties, alleging, in their opinion, the rigging of the voters' register. You know, the voters' register is critical to the conduct of free, fair, and credible elections, but not for today, for us to discuss our career.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, people are devising new means of getting things done wrongly.
Absolutely. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll get ahead with our conversation segment.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the president has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The president has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure, even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the president has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
To begin our conversation on issues concerning state policing, let's now take this report put together by Garba Natala.
The clamor for the creation of state police has continued to generate more momentum among state governors across the country. The spate of criminality, from terrorism, insurgency, to banditry and kidnapping, are some security challenges that characterize the prominent security apparatus of states across Nigeria. This concern is at all-time high, which northern state governors now opt for the establishment of state police. The Northern Traditional Rulers Council also called for the creation of the state police, a body of the police force that will be peculiar to each state authority to conduct law enforcement operations and criminal investigations. After reviewing the security situation in the north by both leaders, they have resolved to support the amendment of the 1999 Constitution to accommodate the establishment of the state police. Security experts, however, have bared their minds on the differences between federal and local security outfits created earlier. Everyone is familiar with the police, but how will state police operate? Well, the main purpose will be spelled out by guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Garba Natala, for that background. With us in the studios to discuss the subject matter, let's welcome Distinguished Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi. He is the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate of the Federal Republic. Senator Sabi, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Also here with us in the studios, it's a professor of criminology, criminal justice administration, and security studies at the National Open University. Previously, of course, was at Nasarawa State University in Kefi, Nasarawa. Professor Sam Smile. Prof, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Let me also introduce from our Kano studios, a retired AIG and former Force Secretary, Mohammed Hadi Zarewa. AIG Zarewa, it's good to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. So we'll improve on the audio because of course we didn't hear his response. All right, please.
Okay, let's begin with the distinguished Senator Sabi Abdullahi. There's been a national conversation around whether or not the country should have state police and therefore state policing. There are all kinds of views that have been expressed. But again, early this week, 19 northern state governors and monarchs met and lent their voice to calls for the establishment of state police against the backdrop of what has been happening around the country. And one of the papers we reviewed this morning did indicate that various other interest groups, PANDEF in the Niger Delta, ACF, Azarawa Consultative Forum, as well as the the Northern Elders Forum, are also saying, look, let's have state police. Is it therefore an idea whose time has come?
Well, absolutely. I believe it's an idea whose time has come. And it's a very wonderful situation that we are at least putting this subject matter in the front burner. It's been there, I think, even in the 8th Assembly. I believe that issue was actually part of what was presented as one of the constitutional alteration bills. And it suffered setback because of so many issues. And I think we need to interrogate some of these issues to see, going forward, how we can make this a possibility. Of course, everybody agrees that the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of the citizens. Where the security and welfare of the citizens is actually impaired in any form or undermined in any form, definitely you can't be calling that situation as a healthy situation. So I think it is timely. However, like I said, if we take a step backwards to look at why did we, or why was that bill, for example, in the 8th Assembly, in that last alteration, why was it rejected? It will give us insight into issues that can make this pronouncement a possibility. And to me, if we really want to get it right, two things are critical here. We must look at the subject not as a linear or single item. We must look at it within the perspective of a system and also within the perspective of what I will call functionalism. In essence, how is this new arrangement going to impact on the overall Nigerian system? That's number one. Number two, how is it going to function? Because it's not just having the state police. Will it actually function to provide that security as it were? So I think if we can look at these issues from this angle, to me, that is when we'll be getting it right. So I commend our leaders who have come together to voice their support for this. And let me say that I hope and pray that this is the first step. The next step is to now ask, what are the things that should accompany this new thought so that it will be effective for our people? And if you ask me, I'm looking at the issue of governance. Because in the first instance, where there is no crime, security does not work. But it's not possible in a country or in any system where you have different people with different thinkings not to have criminal actions. Some might be intended, some might even be unintended. So, or some might even be based on ignorance. So that is why when you are making law, usually you don't make law because of the good people. You make law because of the bad people who will not want to stay within the limit of what is normal, what is rational, and what is sensible. So that is why you make law. So within that context, of course, there are issues. The other aspect people raise concern about is the issue of abuse, where if you put a state police, and in some of the we're in a political dispensation, political handlings we are seeing, some people are of the opinion that, of course, with the state police, political opponents in some states might even not be allowed to even operate at all. So these are the issues. So within that context, for state police to be effective, we must look at it from a system perspective, we must look at it from a functionalist perspective, and we must also ensure that there are very strong safeguards that will deter and prevent any abuse by those who will be wielding the power of state at any particular point in time. And I think the issues, maybe as the conversation goes on, we may begin to read them. But this is my
we will soon delve into some other intricacies, with respect to state policing. But I mean, it's quite clear in other climes where state police is very effective and efficient. And what if you want to adopt a system? You go and seek for a template. When you get a template, you'll be able to now see how you can, structure your own formation to be able to make it function effectively. Now, let's turn to Professor of Criminology. Prof, looking at the crime wave in the country and the various dimensions of criminality in the country, one would have thought that really it is time to do something to rejig, the security infrastructure. By so doing, state policing is also part of what many people are considering. I'm happy that Nigerian leaders are beginning to speak out, but some have done so several years ago, over decades now, to say, look, it is time for this country that is expanding by the day. We had the last census in 2006, and you know how many years that has gone by, and we are not budgeting or planning based on our population. Now population is rising. Criminality is also rising at the same time. Are we ripe, really, for state policing?
All right, thank you very much. I think we are not ripe. We are not ripe because, just like you mentioned, bringing templates from abroad, very, very good, where it brings development assistance, brings international development experts. They come to talk, they come to tell you how to do it. And then at the end of the lifespan of that project, you just find that we are still back to square one. So this is a clarion call, but this call points to some basic issues. I would call them primordial issues that are really embedded in our cultural setting. If you look at our experience with community policing, for example, we made 2 good attempts, both of which have failed. What were the key issues that made those attempts to fail? They were culture-based. They were value-based. There were issues that relate to our perceptions of ourselves. This is a federalism. We're a federalist system. And yet my tribe matters, my religion matters, my state matters. Anybody seeing me, interpreting me, perceiving me, understanding me, trying to get what I'm saying, all of about me is interpreted in a particular way. So have we left that terrain? Have we graduated from that to see ourselves as a nation, to see ourselves as a people, to see ourselves as one, to see ourselves with a singular objective of promoting national integration and unity? Until, for me, that level is appreciably attained. I say appreciably because we may not have to be 100% there, but we must see where all these primordial issues are not as important as developing a society that is organized functionally, like a distinguished senator said. Functionally, because that helps to also handle issues of conflict, issues of crime, issues of deviance, drug abuse, human trafficking. All of these are the results of the failures of the federal system so far. They are the failures of past projects, failures of past constitutions. We don't seem to have the capacity to implement policies. I think we've had a discussion on this here some years back. And whether the society presently is capable of implementing a state police system. Of course, the issues are genuine. Everybody knows what the impact of criminality has been, the impact of insecurity. We are not living our normal lives as citizens. And so we all know that. We all feel it. But the truth is, structure-wise, system-wise, I would say policy-wise, the aspect of implementation, the aspect of in seeing that these values are transmitted into our law-making processes, as well as our capacities to implement this. I think from the past experiences, we still need some time to think about this. What is wrong with the present policing system?
Okay.
Yes, what's wrong with it?
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Samsma, for your opening salvo. We will return to you to further take a dive into what is wrong with the current policing system and what should be the panacea for resolving those challenges. Now, let's go back to our Kano Network Center. If the audio is okay now, we earlier introduced retired AIG Mohammed Hadi Zarewa. Zarewa was first secretary before he retired as an assistant inspector general of police. AIG Zarewa, once again, we're glad to have you join us. And I'm sure that you must have heard or read reports of the renewed calls for the establishment of state police. And this is against the backdrop of what are the daily experiences of Nigerians in recent years with regard to insecurity and the deployment of the military to duties and functions that ordinarily should be those of the regular police force. I ask the question again, is state police an idea whose time has come?
Thank you for that question. You see, for long I have that idea, but for now I have changed my mind about the state police. Why are we having problem of insecurity in Nigeria? When we look since 1999, when we came back to democracy, we started having an increase in crime. But let me just address something. When I remember, first IG was that time, there was too much of west. In the northeast, we have problem of Kwanta. We go to the issue of kidnapping. That was a time when the government, the federal government, should have taken a solution, a serious attacking the problem. But unfortunately, this issue of crime continued growing up to the time when we are this time around. Why are we having this problem? Why the police that cannot contain the situation of this security? Let's at the funding of the police. We have talked many without number that the police are not well funded. They don't have the equipment to do the job. And when it comes to salary, when you come to issue of maybe issue of say for example issue of corruption, I know it's another issue that is contributing the incapability of a system. Having when you want to have a state police, when the federal government cannot fund police satisfactorily, how do you think that the government, when state governments, all of them are waiting for the assistance of the federal government to come and give them, let me tell you that two states I'm aware of, they started issue this, let me take conservative police so we can assist the police. They recruited them, They, up to now, over more the month, they cannot pay them salary. In fact, that's a state where they even they went on strike. So you see, issue of security is a big program, it's a big job, which I'm sure the government, if want to. Another issue is that when they started, involving the military in the issue of crime, fighting crime, internal security is not an issue of inviting the army to come. And why? Let us look what are the causes of this issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Are we ready? Are we solve the problem? Unemployment. Have you solved a lot of causes of crime? If you can solve this issue, of course, you come and give police special equipment, good vehicle, arms and ammunition. You see, the strength of the police, when you look at the number of manpower, they cannot cope up, they cannot even go around and do the work, the job. It's too much on them. Before, you know, when you take a unit of mobile to a place to fight crime, they can. But now even vehicle to carry them to there is not there. They have to hire a vehicle which will carry them to. We know this, but before this is not fun. But this time around, the issue is too bad that even if you are accusing the police of inability to control the crime, of course, they are supposed to control it. But when you don't have manpower, you don't have vehicle, you don't have arms, you have the condition of the civil, it's not even appreciative. How do you want them to do the job? It's not easy. One thing is that even the state government, most of them, when they defended on the federal government to give them money, they cannot even, some of them cannot pay salary, some of them cannot pay pension. Where are they going to get the money to them for police? It's not easy. So let the federal government take a serious decision to make sure that they give them all the necessary equipment. The police, why I'm talking this now, because I'm not in the service, but those in the service cannot come out and tell the federal government that, yes, we don't have this. They will start saying, we have this, they don't have. Let us be frank to people that they are lacking in many, many things which they can fight crime. So state police, even the federal government cannot equip the police, cannot cannot take number of, why are they going to get the money to fund the police? It's a good thing if we are in a state. And when you when you give policemen, you say, let's a governor have police. They can use them for political reasons. Because I can remember when I was commissioner of police in some state, some governors wanted to use me to molest people, to say, no, arrest so fast. No. Why should I arrest somebody when he's not committing? So whether we like it or no, the Nigerian politicians, some of them are ready just to use the police, to have state police for personal interest. But when you go to a country where they are okay now, of course, like in London, they have not even state police, they have local government police. In America, where they are in this democracy, we get democracy, they have federal and state police. I saw the senator there, who was there. Even if one day they want to make law, they have to look at other countries, what are they going to come with a law to make sure that we don't have problem of funding, problem of molestation, like what the senator said, that some people are fearing that if the governor is having a police, he can use them to molest. It's possible. You in Nigeria, you see, sometimes we don't pay much attention to law or constitutional provision of what is and what is it.
AIG had this error. I've just listened to you very, very carefully because I got interested in what you were saying because you're a retired AIG, meaning that you have gathered experience over the years and you can really tell us more about police administration. You just mentioned something that the people in service now cannot tell the government that they don't have equipment and what have you. But in this country, we have had times when the attention is focused on the police. We used to have funds for police. Many state governments have bought hundreds of vehicles and other equipment for the police. As a matter of fact, what you know today as the security vote that is not even constitutional, is given to all the governors. What are they doing with the monies? That they cannot have police or something, or plan their own security, if of course Nigeria goes that way. So the idea, some are saying, that politicians will use it, you can only stay in power for 8 years and you leave power. And of course, whatever you did while you were in power, people will return that to you. And we need to learn how to do it. We can't just say we're not ripe when we know it's required because of the difficulty or the complexity of it. We're not going to sit down and face the crime we're facing today. That's the argument of some of the people. Every policy has advantage and disadvantage. But if the advantage outweighs the disadvantage, then you go for it. But there's nothing that is perfect A to Z from the point of view of some other persons, discussing this issue of policing. Now, are you saying that the state governments who are giving monthly security votes that is not tied to anything cannot convert that money into an organized body for security? Today, in every locality, we have vigilante groups. What are they? They are doing policing work. We have JTF, that's the civilian JTF assisting the military. They are civilians. They are doing policing work. So if they are constituted into a plan and organized, many think perhaps it could work. So what do you say to that?
I was telling you that I am aware of 2 states or some states whereby they recruited this special constabulary over 20 months ago. Up to now, they have not paid them money. In fact, that's one of the states I saw that some of them even went on strike looking for that allowance, just out of no salary now. That's what I'm saying. So you have to have state police. I'm sure if the federal government cannot fund, and even in the state I'm talking, how many, some states cannot pay salary, some cannot pay pension. To what of having a police? They of course they use some money to assist from security, to assist some police, but that system is not sufficient enough to fight crime.
AIG Zarewa, thank you very much. We will come back to you with more questions. Let's return to the studios. Senator Sabir Abdullahi, I would like you to clear this for us, because we saw it in one of the riders to the headline we read from the front page of the Daily Trust. Ekiti State House of Assembly saying that it has already passed a bill for the establishment of state police, and that the bill was one of the set of bills received from the National Assembly for purposes of the 5th alteration to the Constitution. Was state police one of the bills that the National Assembly transmitted to the state legislatures, if you recall?
Honestly, I know that issue was heavily debated. And I want to say, if my memory is not failing me, that yes, it was one of the things we discussed. But I'm not sure if that thing passed through. I'm not sure. But be that as it may, there are issues that we should look at here. For me, like I said earlier in my opening statement, when I say system, that is some of the issues the AIG tried to open up. Prof alluded to some of the issues. For me, if you want a state police that will be functional, the safeguard issues I'm talking about means that first, you have to put in place measures that will reduce the reason why crime is even pervading in the first instance. And the first one, to me, at the grassroots level, is the ungovernable spaces that has been created as a result of some of the deliberate, continuous butchering of the local government system that has made it possible today for you to say, yes, there is a local government, but it is not functioning. If we truly are sincere and we are doing this thing for the people, then all the governors of the state of this country should allow the state houses of assembly to approve the local government autonomy alteration that has been sent to them. What will this do? It will ensure that we have a government at that grassroots level. Issues that will come up that may be the precursor to many crimes are tackled by the functions of the local government. But as it is today, we know those are empty spaces. That's the first one. Secondly, where you catch criminals and you take them to the judiciary, and before you know what's happening, big powers come around and get those criminals out. Like many security agents will tell you, we catch criminals, we send them to the judicial process, and before you know what's happening, they are given bail and the matter is not even allowed. Reason, judiciary are not, in quote, fully autonomous. So let the autonomy of the judiciary also hold sway. The legislature, even at the state level, are supposed to make laws based on the reality. They also are not autonomous. So for me, if we are serious about state police, these three things I've mentioned, the local government, give them their autonomy. Let us know that at that level, there is going to be very massive activity. The judiciary, give them their autonomy. The legislature at the state level, give them their autonomy. And by the time these three things are in place, and you are talking about a state police, because even the state police, who is going to fund it? The funding will come as a result of the legislature ensuring that at that state level, the governor does not enjoy the total control as it is now, almost authoritative, that all the things that are sent to the State House of Assembly cannot even be interrogated by the legislature in a very free and intelligent ambience, because they are not enjoying any autonomy. So if these things are done, then we will have been creating some of the conditions that can begin to narrow down and create a better space, so that if you say you have a police that will do their work free of unnecessary interference, free of some of the present, flip-flop that you see in terms of, somebody abusing the power or whatever. Because if you're making a law, you'll be able to put in place directives that state, government, for example, cannot even give the police. Okay. So these are some of the areas that I think, if we can take a look at them critically and get them on board, I think we can actually begin to think about the idea of that state police.
I just wonder, Senator Sabi Abdullahi, earlier you reminded us that the 8th National Assembly had given consideration to the idea of the establishment of state police, but unfortunately the proposal fell through. Why did the proposal for state police not pass the legislative test during the 8th Assembly? You want to remind our viewers why that happened?
Yeah. Well, at that time, there were two schools of thoughts. Some people were supporting it because they believe it will help in the issue of security across the entire state, and that it will also deepen the federal system of government. But those who were against it, first, they were also looking at it from maybe the perspective of politics. And I think it is even the political consideration that was higher. I won't mention names, but I knew at that time in the 8th Assembly, there were some senators that were having running battles with their governors. And some of those senators were of the opinion at that time that, assuming the governors have access to state police, that they will never smell that state again until they finish the 4 years. Because immediately they are coming in, they will make sure that they are bundled.
Bundled for what reason? Are they criminals?
Well, that is the issue you ask.
So it's based on selfishness, because to protect themselves, not
definitely. So that issue was very strong among many senators, if I must say, and even members of House of Rep. And if you go back in time, you will see that these are issues that continues, because there are many people who were having issues with their state governors. Now, that is the first part. The second part also was that many people felt the funding for it was not going to be possible. And that at the end of the day, you end up arming another set of people who will now turn around and begin to now harass and intimidate citizens, because maybe they have the funding, like the AIG is talking about now, the examples he has given. Those people, if they are not collecting salary and they are not getting paid, after a while, they will begin to constitute themselves into nuisance, trying to find ways of making money out of the citizens. So that issue was also another perspective that many people looked at. However, let me make this quick statement. Somebody, I think it's Prof, who asked, what is wrong with the present policing system? Some of us at that time also thought the present policing system can be tinkered with. in such a manner that you can now domesticate some component of the present police at the state level through certain, policy interventions that you put in place. And I give you one or two examples. At that time, some people said, okay, fine, up to a particular level of the rank and file of the police, maybe the constable up to maybe sergeant or whatever, or inspector, what do they call it? They said, try to make sure as much as possible they come from their state of origin. Then at the top level, where you are going to have more serious, decision making, you now try to have a mix of people from other states to make sure that whatever is going to happen at the local level is not going to be influenced by some of the primordial sentiments that Prof was talking about. That we can have this hybrid system, and at the end of the day also, rather than the present system where you just send one direct fund to force headquarters and they decide whatever happens, you now start funding state command. There will now be a budget line, social state command, because the security challenge of state A and another state is not the same. That way you will now be able to deal with the issues as they come, because it's now dynamic. You cannot.
But that funding issue, Prof, we're putting you on hold, but just for the senator to explain, that funding issue, shouldn't that be the responsibility of the legislature, the National Assembly, for instance? Because, Kirian, we've had some police officers who will tell you to say, look, when, as the senator said, funds go direct to the force headquarters, for them to have their operational funds, releasing operational funds, they will have to be making applications. And that this is time wasting and there are delays. Is it not possible to decentralize at the level of budgeting, appropriation, to say, look, let each state police command be the ones to, of course, as part of the police management team, come to defend the budget for the states, again, and then recognizing that the challenges of security in state A will not necessarily be the same with state B or C or D or
You are absolutely correct. And I will tell you personally, that has always been my position as a senator, even in the 8th Assembly. And I recall vividly that at one point there was an IG who was supportive of this idea to decentralize the funding such that state commands. But the other aspect they brought is that when you do that, you are reducing their authority in terms of the command. And that the nature of police is such that somebody must give a central command and money.
I was waiting for you to get there. I was waiting to get there because all these are analogy, that we're hearing from you and others, in terms of the disadvantages inherent in state policing. They're there. What about the other side of it, the other corner of it? That's what other people are saying. Like, with due respect, the former Deputy Senate President, Ige Kweramadu, who was one of the, yes, exactly, sponsored the bill because of the necessity of it. It isn't necessarily because of the mechanics or perhaps difficulties or encumbrances we are going to encounter under normal circumstances. For you to do anything good, you need to encounter such complexities and whatever. And to deal with it makes you demand that you are, or make us a nation, for you to implement the policies. Because if we go into this and we say, okay, the design a policy for this, and if it's designed to implement it, will always become a problem in this part of the world. That's why I talked about templates in the first place. What we're doing today as presidential system is a template from somewhere, and we are trying to grapple with it and try to practice it. Now let me bring you in again, Professor Sam Smile. You raised a number of issues, against state policing. You also admitted that there is a heightened criminal activities across the nation. Nigeria has about, I think, less than 500,000 police men and women.
Fewer than 300,000. 320 or
and we are about
more than half of them are doing
direct personal services to individuals in this country. And we are about 200 million people. And what else do you want this nation to do? Because what happened in a couple of years now in terms of insecurity in this country is not even the making of the government that per se. It's a societal evolution. It's a societal development. People don't have something going to do? And so on. So what should be the best remedy? Do we go state police, or you say blatantly no? Remember that we are developing alongside the other parts of the world.
Yeah, thank you again. You've raised fundamental issues yourself, which I think listeners are also taking home. One issue that is very clear here is the issue of patriotism, national patriotism. So how patriotic are we? How patriotic are the people managing our systems and our institutions in seeing the common goal, the common good of the citizens and the society? That is very important question to sort out. Yes, it's obvious. Society is growing. The population is growing. And somebody said that the larger the economy, the more complex you have, all the challenges, internet fraud, all these sort of things come into play in defining the character of the citizenry. And so that's very okay. And of course, I think distinguished senator cited the case of UK, or was it the AIG? UK, US, Germany, the practice, or the South Africa practice also some semblances of state policing. And they have worked, so we need to go and learn from there. But what we're saying is that against the backdrop of our perennial problems of system failures, policy failures, you need to think deeply. The issues of politicizing and abuse, we must address them squarely. Funding, of course, there are many templates we can use for funding the police. I raised two important issues in association with this. The issue of jurisdiction. A state police must necessarily police state crimes. A federal police must police federal crimes and prosecute federal criminals as well. The community police, they must have a well-defined jurisdiction over what type of conducts that they have the jurisdiction, as well as the judiciary, that a court of competent jurisdiction must try particular cases. These are things that should really bother us. We need to develop systems and put this in place, as well as the whole issue of jurisprudence. What are the schools of law doing? What are the faculties of law going to teach? What structures have we put in place to accommodate these distinctions, to ensure effectiveness in what you are saying? Okay, the state governor cannot police a federal system. He can't. So it must be the federal system, the federal institutions, federal personnel that can handle it. If you check the American system very clearly, of course, you can arrest and hand over, isn't it? Even citizens have the power. I think the current Police Act gives citizens even the right to make arrests and report, carry suspect to the police, make a statement, and off you go. So that is provided for. So these are very inviting environment that we are evolving and beginning to see. But then the structure, you talked about functionality, the structure, the dynamics of the change which you are bringing here, the processes of punishing who has committed crimes, whether it's state crime, whether it's federal crime, whether it's community crime, whether it's a cultural violation of certain practices, those systems right now, you see a lot of abuses, you see a lot of injustices, embedded in them.
Okay, now, so I want to continue, but I just want to chip in this. How do you classify, the fact that, like in the Southwest, for instance, we have a Moteku, right? We have a Bubag in the Southeast. There are other, civilian organized vigilante groups, even in community level.
Yeah.
These people are providing police job. They are providing police services, right? And now the fact that they are not factored into the system, yet the system is taking care of them, because those vigilantes also receive some stipends and what have you. So they are not incorporated as a body to begin to say this is a state police, but they are functioning.
Yes,
they are functioning. Because I also want to add to what Kirian said. In Kano, where AIG Zarewa is, there is Hisba. In the Northeast, particularly in Borno, you have civilian JTF. That example has been cited. And is it not possible that because of these pre-existing formal and informal organizations, we can have an organic growth out of this rather than having a transplantation? They say, oh, this is what they do in Australia. Australia is a federal system. This is what they practice. Bring it here, and then you plant it, and it doesn't germinate. But already, we are having semblances of community policing, semblances of state policing, X, Y, Z. So it's already with us. It's already amongst us. Could we not therefore say, look, okay, what is good amongst these elements? Who is good amongst them? Let us begin with a core that is manageable, and then you grow. The police we have today, that Nigerian police we have today, did not have its number as 320,000 at the beginning. It's been an organic growth. So that's part of what Kiran is asking. Can't we have that?
I quite agree with you, because that's what I said from the beginning, that we need to really go back to the issues of those cultural value issues that we have. Those cultural institutions, those cultural resources, I call them resources, that we have. We need them. But you know that the present police structure does not, so to say, accept, those cultural resources that are in the communities that can assist them. I teach community policing at the university level. And part of the problem is that the police comes with their structure, right? They want the community to answer sir to them. And then the community says, no, if you really want us, then let's sit at a round table, have a discussion. How much of influence, how much of contributions, how much of authority can we bring into the process? And I think that's the basic reason for the failures of the attempt before. So, yeah, we have these resources which we can actually mobilize and streamline. We need to do that. We don't need, for me, we don't need a state police in the structure that we are saying, because it raises the issues of jurisprudence, raises the issue of jurisdiction as well. We need to find what is working and let the governors, I think Distinguished actually says something about that. Let the governors find ways to fund those institutions, integrated into an institution. But by the time you institutionalize a force, because it will be state police force, I don't know how they're going to call it, but it will be a state police force. By the time you institute a force, you can see that even the present structure, the present federal policing system, where you don't have salaries paid regularly, AIG talked about that. You don't have all the equipment, you don't have the ammunitions, you don't have the technology, right? Forensic technology, for example, you don't have them. And criminals are far ahead of you on this. You don't have them. So what do the average federal police does? They resort to all means of survival. And that pushing them to that level is in itself defeating the structure. That's why I say, what's wrong with the present federal system, policing system? What is wrong with it is you don't have a clear commitment for the police to do their job. And that's why you also see all this JTF thing coming in. You see joint patrol, you have all these other organizations, the army coming in, taking over purely police work of providing security for the citizenry, and all those things come as a result of the total, I believe, I wouldn't say total dysfunction, but there's some huge gaps that we have that exist in the operationalization of the system. And it happens in any case. It may not just be the police.
Yeah. Professor Smart, thank you. Thank you. Part of what you say is we should think and think deeper to harness our social, cultural, technological resources in ensuring that what we want to get is one that provides the level of security that we all desire.
Yeah.
Now, the job of the police, or the essence of policing, is not arrest in the first instance. The primary duty is prevention.
Yeah.
Now, go around major cities in Nigeria, and then you ask yourself, what is the level of police presence that you see on beat patrols? Now, is it the citizens of Nigeria, the fewer than 200 million persons who have now cornered nearly 100,000 or more of police officers for their private security functions? That's not the case. I would like AIG Zarewa, former Force Secretary, to also respond to this. Now, the argument we are making now, if any of us were to say this to persons in parts of Niger, which is where Senator Sabi Abdullahi comes from, or in Katsina, in Zamfara, where people are facing the existential threats, daily existential threats. What they just need is protection of life and property. And they say, look, how do you get around this? Is it not possible for us, in thinking about likely abuse of state police, even as a structure, to see, as Professor Smart also said, what are the jurisdictional outlines? I don't see any, I've not heard rather, conversations around to say, look, if and when we do have state police, this is what they will be able to do. This is what they will not be able to do. This will be the collaboration and cooperation that they have, that they will have with the federal police. Because the fact that you are going to have a state police does not mean, for instance, that the Kano State Police Command, where you are joining us from now in Kano, will be disbanded. It doesn't mean also that the zonal headquarters of the police in Kano, where you are, will also be dismantled. But it then means that we have to find the kid. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. Look, if you have a state police, how will it interface with the federal police? Because elsewhere, where you have multiple layers of policing, once a crime is bigger than one level to handle, there is a call to the others to come to help, not to say that, okay, it's your function, go and do with it. Can we have a conversation around this?
Thank you very much. You see, let me just, I'm not that, you see, it appears you think I'm against this issue of state police, and you, from your question, from what you're saying, you are a support of the state police. No, maybe you don't understand me. Like, let me remember what the distinguished senator mentioned about deployment of the policeman, the rank and file. It's happening that in each of the local government, every country, every state you go in the federation, there are the local policemen who are recruited and taken to train in the police college and posted to the local government. That happen. And it's a good way of being a local police operation. We know even if there is going to be a police, state police, law is coming up. The state, the senator is aware of what they are going to. He had made a mention of that, what they are going to do, what is the pension of the state police, what is the section of the federal police. But my argument always is still that if, for example, let me tell you, see, I work in about 3 states of the federation, like I mentioned earlier. Of course, the state government used to assist, even though the federal government used to come better than what is the state. But what I'm saying now, when you look at the issue of the economy in this country, particularly when I'm giving you an example of that, some states that who cannot pay salary, not pay pension, a lot of projects cannot, uncompleted projects, and you are thinking that when you have state police and they rely on the federal government to get allocation. That's my argument. You see, if we have a funding from federal government, I'm sure the police, the federal police can do so, can politicize, and they can equally tackle the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. What we don't know, we must look at the cause of the crime in Nigeria. At the cause of the crime. Why the crime? It's all these types of cases. These are some of the issues which the government also has to do some. We're not calling for this. Even if when you have a state police, now you can still have this problem of issue of having security crime if you have to take care of unemployment, this issue of kidnapping and what have you now. But still I insist, and I believe that if the federal government can come up and do that, before we have everything to fight crime now. And the issue of crime is as high as this time. And this issue of crime is at the same time. I was saying, you mean at initial pattern now, the federal government knows the people permission that serious attention paid to that up to the time when this came to this position. State police, like I was telling you now, if you can remember, there was a time when we have a program with you here. I have the idea of that state police. But when you look at it's not just having the police, what of the money, what the money. Federal government has a problem of funding the police. Why the federal government, state government depend on the federal government? Where are we going the resources to look? I even say our economy is going down again now. How can we come up as a state police? I must sincerely say, and I stand on my point that let's wait and see many issues mentioned. The distinguished senator have to be looked into before you come up with the state police. Maybe one day later, we are still developing. The democracy is. We may come up, but whether we like it or not, the police, state police, the politicians, the governors there, they will use the police and harass people. I'm telling you. And they will recruit maybe some of their supporters to come and be the police officer. Maybe this endeavor we call them, or whatever you call them, or maybe any type of them. That's one of the fear.
All right. We actually have to apologize, really, for the distorted audio in some portions of Muhammad Hadi Zerawa's comments. We hope our engineers will do something about that. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll also be looking at other perspectives with respect to state policing, the arguments and the conversations going on, all the issues of the benefits and the disadvantages in doing so. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
The digital switchover project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, is one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as Free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them their production, employing several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Trying our best to contain the situation. In our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities. And we've been able to also recover, particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. All our guests are still with us. And then, of course, interrogating the renewed calls for state police. We know there will be challenges in the event that the idea gains more traction. Senator Sabi Abdullah, I want to come back to you. You gave some conditions which, in your opinion, would conduce to the establishment of state police. Have local government autonomy, have judicial autonomy, have legislative autonomy at the state level, so that the issues of governance can go. And ultimately, you also reduce the powers of the emperors who are currently governors in the various states. But I know that this point has also come up, not just into this conversation, but previously. Oh, and that AIG also referred to that. Oh, state governors cannot pay salaries now. They can't pay on a consistent basis X, Y, Z. Couldn't we also now begin to insist on the sanctity of employment contracts? Because let's be realistic. Employment is by contract, and the terms of your employment are stated there. So when you hear, and as it was in the past, oh, I've cleared so many backlog of salaries, that is not an achievement. It's a contract. Adhere to the terms of contract. Pay me. I don't know whether there has been any litigation on this at the National Industrial Court, for instance. You didn't pay me when you were supposed to have paid me, and I incurred so much. So you call for damages and let people know, so that when you recruit, for instance, assuming you get it to work, when you recruit state police personnel, they don't have to be 100,000 as you have with the police today. It could be 2,000. It could be 500. When you recruit them, they are part of your first line charge of payment.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I definitely agree totally with what you have said. And I think what we need to look at is, as it is today, systemic corruption in terms of the institutional setting is what has made all of these things seems very ominous and impossible. As we speak, we have a system where, for example, even in the state, you are supposed to have what they call establishment. Establishment gives you the number of people you will need to put on any simple work. But as we speak today, because of political consideration and other things, I don't think anybody is following anything called establishment. And that is why even at the local government level, the only thing they do is pay salary. There are many people. In fact, I can make it bold to say that from experience and what I have known over the years, if you go to a particular state, less than 30% of the staff employed by the state government are actually doing the work. You go to the local government, that one is even no beginning, because all of them have been made moribund. They only collect salary and there is nothing. So for me, if we can do proper resource allocation in terms of first agreeing what should be the standard establishment for every single position, by the time you do that, you also now be able to come down to the issue of policing, because the policing is also part of the resources required for proper governance and for proper, functioning of the citizens and by implication, the economy. Because, it's like the chicken and the egg, which one comes first? That debate can never end. But my take is that if we really want to get this right, then we need to be very courageous. We need to come down to the basics and ask ourselves, currently, the way staff are being recruited, and that is the reason why in some states, they will tell you today they've dealt with so number of ghost workers. Any government that come in will see some ghost workers that have hidden under some layers that the previous government never saw. And it has been a continuous thing. And the truth of the matter is that ghost workers exist. I remember in my state, when the present governor came, he did a lot of work bringing in the union before they were able to do some cleansing and remove a number of ghost workers. So this is what the state needs to really look at. And I think within this context, we should overall return back to the issue of governance to really care for the citizens. Because if we truly care for the citizens, some of the issues, because what brings crime in the first instance? What brings crime? There are conditions precedent for crime to strive. And when you don't take care of those conditions precedent, a lot of things happen. For example, experts will tell you, children, school students, when they are gainfully engaged in doing so many things, they will not have time for some of these things. You go to secondary schools today, the level of crimes that secondary students are beginning to be involved in will definitely, get you scared. And what is it? Most of these schools, they don't even have sport facilities where the child can go and exhibit his talent. In our days, you go to the sport, office and just mention the sport you want to go and do, they give you the kits. Now, even the fields are not there. The kits are not there. Everything is makeshift.
A lot of young persons have a lot of energy.
And they have a lot of energy that they want to dissipate.
Yes.
And the moment they have, like they said, the moment they have bolted out of the stable,
can't shut the barn. You can't shut the barn gate.
It's indeed what he mentioned earlier, the systemic corruption, which many would say it's incredibly dangerous, because one, to stamp out corruption in a system where that has permeated the fabric of society for decades is really a huge task. But in terms of state police, according to those who are advocating that, they will say that, look, if you have all these, we call them paramilitary or some of the organizations used by state governments, if you go to every state, you see some uniformed people who are operating, in fact, carrying out police services, and you can see them, we can see them doing that physically and what have you. And what we're discussing here this morning is all about how do you formalize this group of people to say, look, you now have a right to do that. Many state governments have these organizations and they are still paying them. So when our guest in Kano, Mohammed Hadith, was talking about how state governments will pay, some say, look, that if a state is running a police system and you institute police trust fund for that state, that citizens of that state are prepared to sustain it to a reasonable extent. Plus, of course, what we know as the security vote, which I'm told is not constitutional, yet it is being carried out in the country. And such monies that are humongous in such a way that there are people who have been governors who say, look, I didn't quite know what to do with it at the first instance. And if you want to really know what they do with it, carry out your investigation. You know that they're being badly utilized. But as a matter of fact, I don't even put into security in the first place. But in some states, I'll give it to them. They have to buy hundreds of operational vehicles for police and what have you. Within 6 months, those vehicles fizzle out.
Because there is no maintenance cost.
You try to say, where is this? Where are these
There's no maintenance cost.
No, it's not just maintenance cost. Okay, I know the point is that because Senator Sabi had thrown in something. AIG, retired AIG, Felix Ogbaldo, he was 70 the other day, 70 last month. On Good Morning Nigeria, he had raised some issues. You're talking about vehicles purchased for the police. It says, for instance, that you no longer have police mechanic workshops.
That's it. That used to be there in those days.
So
Yes.
police mechanic work, is it
It's
the
gone.
business? Is it the so who is supposed to set that up? Who is supposed to run it? So that when you have a new vehicle donated to you, I mean, except for utilization for hot chases and you get into an accident, XYZ, just routine operation. That vehicle should last nothing less than minimum 2-3 years.
2-3 years
Before you start thinking of saying, look,
exactly.
we want to depreciate this and get it off our books.
But I think that, you know, taking off from what you said about the systemic corruption, I think the fault squarely is on the desk of legislators like you, distinguished. I'm not saying you are one of them, but
Come on, let's hear it.
but the fact is that if you are my boss and I'm entitled to promotion and you don't promote me, yet if I run into trouble and I come to you, sir, I need help, you give me some money to go home with. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. You need to run that into my CV. I need to run that into my experience. But when you leave me alone and you can assist me, I mean, it doesn't do anything. And that's exactly what some of the officers in the systems do. Okay, you set up a scheme. You know, you see a number of people wearing uniforms. You don't know what this uniform stands for. Security-wise, I think it's even a threat. But somewhere there is some form of authority they have somewhere to be on the street to do one or two things. Now that stops at the governor's expedience. When he leaves office, that may not continue. So what I'm trying to say is that everything must be legislated. And it's not at the whims and caprices of the executive to change that. So if you institute a state police, the issue of establishment comes in there. The legislator should be able to make it an impeachment offense if you don't implement that policy as designed, as approved and recommended by the legislative house. If you don't do that, then you just... Yes.
Because when you say impeachment offense, the Constitution has given things around the issue of impeachment.
And that's exactly the amendment.
Now, what I want you to realize is that, for example, we have the new Police Act.
Yes.
That new Police Act was designed to address some of the issues that are being raised. That is where the issue of the community policing now came on board officially. However, the way in which they are supposed to operate it must have bearing with also the various states and even the various communities. And within that context, the legislature has done what needs to be done. But then you talk about oversight. When it comes to oversight, how do you oversight some of these things?
That's
when the jurisdiction
grand corruption you are talking about.
So this is the point we need to understand. And that's why I'm saying, for us as legislators, we are supposed to legislate for what? Good governance.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
And then the issue of the welfare and security of citizens.
Exactly.
And I will say to an extent, honestly, we have done so much within this context.
Yes, okay.
And my take is that when it comes to budgeting, for example, the issue being raised earlier about decentralizing, honestly, the National Assembly was more than ready. But the executive somehow brought this aspect of you now reduce the power of the command. So when it comes to that, what do? It will amount to maybe we are now overreaching ourselves. So these are the issues.
Yes, exactly.
All right, gentlemen, I would like us to return to Kano, AIG Zarewa. I know that this is an issue that is going to be ongoing, but if key political actors and traditional rulers are throwing their weight behind the idea of state police, I think the thing is to say, look, what are the likely challenges we'll face with state police, and then how do we overcome those challenges by having safeguards, as Senator Sabi Abdullahi said. I'm just wondering, it looks like the image has gone off. We've lost the signal to Kano. All right, now we understand that AIG Zarewa, you're back to us. My colleague earlier apologized for the unsteady audio from your end. This is not intended to cast aspersions on the officer corps of the Nigerian police, but the argument has also been made sometime in the past that the Nigerian police force is dead against the establishment of state police because, all right, again, the signal is weak, again, because of the fear that state police would take away from them what would now become the federal police, some of the resources that state governments used to deploy to the federal police. Because the state governments would then focus on their own state police. Lagos State, for instance, that has a security trust fund, will utilize it for the state police, and I'm sure other state governments will have that. And then the police trust fund, which has already been established, headed by a former retired Inspector General of Police, Suleiman Abba, will then have the opportunity of dealing with others. But that part of the objection to the establishment of state police is the fear of whittling down the resources that could be then available to federal police from the state governments. What's your reaction to that, AIG?
Maybe the view of some. Me, I don't think that should be a problem that the resources are getting from the state government cannot, because as we are saying, when if are going to be a state of police, I'm sure there is going to be a law which will the Senate, House of Rep, and come with the modality, the punishment, the laws, and whatever you have about this or the Nigerian police force. You see, I don't think that is the feeling. Maybe I don't have that idea. I don't think this is the view of the Nigerian police that is. But all I'm saying that the state police, like most, I've said it a lot about having a police issue. Since the police at the federal level are having problem of funding, why the state government is going to get? Some state can get, very few states can get, can fund the state police, like you mentioned about Lagos, where they have this Nigerian Trust Police Fund, which I'm sure they are assisting the police. I know of it, I know what is happening, because my colleagues there, they told me about the existence of that. But most of the states, when you look, they cannot, have the capacity or the ability or the money to have a state police, in fact, without the state federal allocation. Because Lagos we have seen, when for about 2 years, they were running the state without the federal allocation, and they were comfortable. How many states in Nigeria can afford to do that one? So the same thing I'm saying, you see, I'm not totally against establishment of the police for negative view or for any reason. And let the federal government give all the necessaries to the Nigerian police for recruitment, training. Like I didn't mention about even courses. I don't know that you're even aware that how many police officers now are going abroad to learn the modality of modern crime control. How many are they? They don't go. Very few. Even at the state college, go to the police college. Are they having the teachers? Are they having the people to train them? When you mention, these are all necessary. But when you are doing a police job, prevention, every day crime is happening, you have to know what is the kidnapping is something which we don't. Like me, I've attended a course on kidnapping long time, since 1989 in England. So by that time, we don't have the problem of kidnapping, we don't have problem of others. But now it's coming. Our police officers and chances are to go to this country to get training or courses on this. Even take where the training, where the police college, where.
AIG Mohammed Hadi Zerewa, we appreciate all the points that you have made today. Gentlemen, of course, the discussion really went well, and different perspectives, brought to bear. And what is steady, what you cannot change right now is the fact that we need extra kind of police in the country based on the rise in the number of criminal activities that's all over the Federation. That's a fact. Something has to be done. If it's state police, fine and good. But I want to believe that if some state governments can have their own uniformed men operating and carrying out state police services work, of course, it should be formalized. And of course, other challenges taken care of. So once again, thank you for being here with us via NTA Kano studio. Thank you. Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, it's been wonderful talking to you this morning. We hope to see you again. Matters like this.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I think my take is that, yes, you asked the earlier question. Is it an idea whose time has come?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It has come.
However, we need a lot of work to be done.
All right.
And safeguards must be put in place.
We'll stop you there for time. Back to Professor Sam Osma, Criminal Justice Administration and Security Studies, National Open University. Prof, we thank you.
Thank you
for
very
sharing
much.
your
Good
thoughts
morning.
with us.
Thank you.
All right, sir, let's take some sports.
Lionel Messi set a new Champions League scoring record after